Do you ever have a feeling that something's missing from your life, that no matter what you try to fill it with, it never seems to quite work? That it's okay for a while, but once the busyness stops and maybe you're just by yourself walking or in your bed, that you get that sense of emptiness. Well, in this video, we're going to explore why this happens and, more importantly, what is the missing piece that we need. Welcome to A Little Nudge. My name is Derek, and for the last 3 decades I've been helping people explore and deepen their faith, and in these videos just giving you some nudges, some tools to live a deeper and a more richer life. I do a lot of presenting in my life, in my career, in my church and in business world, and I discovered this idea of something being missing when I was presenting. And I really devoted myself to being good at it. And when I would be speaking, if I get some feedback and people say that was really good or that was helpful or whatever it might be, I'd be getting really buzzing because it had worked what I'd said. And for days I'd be on a bit of a high. And then next time I'm presenting, if people never said very much or they said not as much as before, I'd find myself on a bit of a downer. And after a while, I noticed I was having this kind of roller coaster experience, and I realized that I was leaning on the feedback from people too much, that I was depending on their validation rather than just thinking I'm going to do a good job. I've did a good job and that's fine. And this idea that we lean on something for our sense of feeling enough, I think, is what leads to us feeling that something might be missing. And we can do that for all sorts of things. Some of us lean on our children to get a real sense of meaning. Others try our work. Some try money, all sorts of different things. And there's a really powerful commencement address by David Foster Wallace at the Kenyon College. And I find it's really fun and interesting. In America, they often get real celebrities to speak to their graduating class, maybe Steve Jobs, Reeves or Bill Gates, all sorts of different people. Well, I think one of the best ones was in 2005 from David Foster Wallace. And he's speaking to this graduating class. And I wonder what you would say if you're speaking to a bunch of people about to leave college and about to enter into the big wide world. Well, in the middle of his speech, he says something really interesting and powerful. This is what he says. He says, in the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is no atheists. There's no such thing as not worshipping. He said, everybody worships. The only choice we get is to what we worship. And you'd find in the Bible the same idea that we all worship something. We all have something that captures our imagination and our heart. We all commit to something. We all have something that we look to calm our fears. We all have something that is the source of our deepest hopes. All something that we just can't live without, or it's the thing that we're desperately seeking. And for some of us, that's being a parent. For some of us, that's our work. For some of us, it's what we earn. It's our career. It's what other people think of. It's how we look, all that sort of stuff. And we might think that that's really quite harmless. But my experience tells me that it's not harmless. And probably yours does too. That's why you feel that there is something missing. Anyway, David Foster Wallace, he goes on to, and when he talks about everybody worships, he gives this warning, and he said you need to be really, really careful, because pretty much anything you worship will eat you alive. Anything that you worship will eat you alive. That he observes life. He's not necessarily a Christian or follow Jesus, David Foster Wallace, but he just looks at life and he sees that the things that people put first in their life, and he thinks actually a lot of those things dehumanize us or eat us alive, that there's too much weight for a lot of things to make them our ultimate thing. That your marriage can't be your ultimate thing, or your kids can't be your ultimate thing, or your work or your looks. If you put ultimate thing on those, it's just too much. They can't cope. And this is what David Foster Wallace goes on to say. He says, if you worship money and things, if that's where you tap real meaning in life, then you'll never have enough. You'll never feel that you have enough. Do you feel that you have enough money? And then he says, if you worship power, you'll feel weak and afraid. You'll feel you need ever more power over others to keep that fear at bay. Do you know any insecure leaders in your organization, in your workplace? Leaders who seem to be desperately grasping at power, that they're using power to make them feels good. But the more that they grasp, rather than it feels good, they feel worse and need to grasp even more. This is this idea that when we lean onto things for our ultimate, actually it does the opposite. He's David Watless again. He says, worship your intellect. Remember, he's speaking to like graduating class. Worship your intellect and you be seen as smart, then you end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. That you're leaning onto that, and rather than feeling great about it, you're feeling afraid that you might get found out because you're making a good thing an ultimate thing, and it can't cope with that. And then he says, worship your own body, worship your own beauty, your sexual allure, and you'll always feel ugly. And when time and age start showing, you will die a million deaths before they finally plant you. And we look for people who have these things of money and power and wealth and looks, and we think it can't be true, because we think if we just had that money, or if we had that position, or if we had that power or those looks, we'd feel fantastic. We see a beautiful man or a beautiful woman and think they must feel really secure about themselves because we look and we go absolutely wow. But when you lean on something for your ultimate, we find that it's like something is missing. Here's what Megan Fox said. Megan Fox, star of Transformers and lots of other films. You'd look at her and think, wow, she's a beautiful woman. If you're a guy, you'd be like, yeah, I'd want to be with that woman. If you're a woman, you think, yeah, if I only looked like that woman. If you only could be there, everything would be fine. But in a really honest, candid interview with Cosmopolitan, this is what Megan Fox says. Someone you'd look at and you think, yeah, she must have it all together. She said this, she said, I'm confident in how I project my personality. But in terms of how I look, remember, we would look and think she's beautiful. How I look, I'm completely, hysterically insecure. I'm self-loathing, introverted, and neurotic. When we lean on a good thing and make it an ultimate thing, it eats us alive. And that applies to our marriage and to our money and to our work and our achievements, our exercise, whatever it might be, because it's just a good thing. It's not an ultimate thing, and it can't cope with that. There's a very harsh verse in Jeremiah 2 verse 5. I mean, it sounds harsh, but actually when you unpack it, you realize it's really insightful. And it says they worshipped worthless idols only to become worthless themselves. It's the idea we become like our idols. And if our idols is a good thing, not an ultimate thing, then we will be dissatisfied. We will feel that there's something missing. It's why Jesus insists, he said, worship God. Worship with your heart and worship with your whole mind, worship with your whole strength, worship with your whole soul. It's like every part of your being, worship God and put him first. Not because he's a megalomaniac, not because he's insecure and he needs people to worship him, because actually that's you finding yourself in the right place, that there's something missing, because the only person who can fit that space is God himself, that the only ultimate is God himself, that we lean on him for the ultimate things in life, then we will get those ultimate things. But anything else will fall short and we'll always feel like something is missing. And I want you to just think about that as you go through your week. What is it you're yearning for? What are you leaning on for your ultimate? And how is that going for you? Or actually do you find a yearning for something bigger, for something to satisfy you, something to kind of make you feel complete? Because I reckon only God is the one who's can be trusted with that. Only God is big enough to cope with that level of pressure. And I recommend that you really dig into this video next, because this video talks about our desires and it talks about a couple of traps that we fall into. And if you're looking about contentment and being satisfied with your life, then turn to that one next, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye bye.